The Temple of Eternal Resonance had stood for 3,000 years, and for the last 300 of those years, it had been host to the galaxy's most dedicated group of failures. High Priest Kelmar the Devout stood before the Relic of Harmonious Awakening, his 6 arms raised in the traditional pose of supplication, his throat sacs inflating with ceremonial precision as he chanted the 7th hymn of imploring. Around him, 43 junior priests swayed in synchronized movements that had taken them decades to perfect. Incense smoke filled the chamber, the expensive kind imported from the methane swamps of Keltos Prime, because apparently the Relic had standards. The Relic, a crystalline sphere roughly the size of a beach ball, sat on its pedestal and did absolutely nothing, again. Kelmar deflated his throat sacs with a sigh that would have made a depressed whale proud. That was attempt number 4,782. But who was counting? Besides Kelmar, who had a very depressing spreadsheet. Perhaps, offered Junior Priest Talvis, his voice hopeful in the way that only the truly naive can manage, we should try the 3rd hymn again? With more feeling this time? Kelmar resisted the urge to throw his prayer beads at Talvis's head. The 3rd hymn had been tried 643 times, with feeling, without feeling, with interpretive movements, and once, memorably, while standing on one leg. The Relic had remained as responsive as a rock, which, to be fair, it basically was. An extremely holy, potentially universe-altering rock, but still. Clean up this mess, Kelmar said wearily, gesturing at the ritual circle covered in flower petals, sacred oils, and what appeared to be glitter. He had no memory of authorizing glitter. And someone fetch the new janitor. I want this place spotless before evening prayers. That was when Marcus Webb entered the picture, pushing a mop bucket that had seen better days and wearing a uniform that suggested janitorial services was a universal constant, even in space. Marcus was human, which meant he looked vaguely primate-ish to the Valorians, stood at an unremarkable height, and possessed the kind of face that suggested he had long ago made peace with life's disappointments. He had taken this job for 3 reasons. It paid in actual galactic credits, it was quiet, and nobody expected him to care about ancient alien mysticism. You the guy who needs mopping? Marcus asked, giving the ornate temple about as much reverence as one might give a particularly elaborate gas station bathroom. Kelmar's left eye twitched. In 300 years of service, no one had ever referred to the sacred Temple of Eternal Resonance as a place that needed mopping. But technically, he supposed, it did. Yes. Please be careful around the Relic. It is an artifact of immense power and cosmic significance. Marcus glanced at the sphere. Cool. Does it do anything? The priests gasped in unison, which created an unfortunate echo in the domed chamber. It will, Kelmar said with as much dignity as he could muster, when the worthy one arrives to awaken it, as prophesied in the ancient texts. Right, Marcus said, in a tone that suggested he had heard this exact type of thing before and remained thoroughly unimpressed. So, no then. Got it. I will work around your fancy paperweight. If Kelmar had possessed blood pressure in the human sense, it would have been skyrocketing. Instead, his skin shifted to a pale purple, which in Valorian biology indicated either extreme stress or mild indigestion. Just clean, Kelmar managed. Marcus shrugged and got to work. 20 minutes later, Marcus was mopping around the Relic's pedestal while Kelmar attempted the 9th hymn of awakening. This one involved a lot of gong strikes, and what Marcus privately thought of as aggressive humming. Marcus had learned long ago that the secret to any janitorial job was to mentally check out while physically present. So as he pushed the mop back and forth, creating neat lines in the ancient stone floor, his mind wandered to more important matters, like whether the station cafeteria would have those fried mushroom things again. Those had been surprisingly good. Without really thinking about it, he started humming. It was not a sacred hymn. It was not an ancient melody passed down through generations. It was, in fact, the jingle from a cleaning supply commercial he had seen roughly 15 years ago on Earth. Something about how sparkle bright made your floors shine right. The jingle had wormed its way into his brain during his first janitorial job and had never left. Such was the curse of catchy advertising. The relic flickered. Just once. Just the faintest pulse of light, like someone had briefly turned on a lamp in another room. The gong crashed to the floor. Kelmar's chanting cut off mid-syllable. Every single priest in the chamber froze, which was impressive considering several of them had been mid-ritual dance. "What?" Kelmar whispered, his voice shaking. "Did you just do?" Marcus looked up from his mopping. Cleaned? Pretty sure I got that corner spot where someone spilled the ceremonial wine last week." "No, the sound. The noise you were making with your mouth hole." "Oh, humming? Yeah, I do that sometimes, passes the time." "Do it again." It was not a request. Kelmar had crossed the chamber in 3 long strides, all 6 arms reaching toward Marcus with an intensity that suggested he was about to either embrace him or strangle him. "Do what again?" "The mouth noise. The exact same mouth noise." Marcus blinked. He had absolutely no memory of what he had been humming. His brain had been on autopilot, cruising through a playlist of half-remembered commercial jingles and old pop songs. Could have been anything, really. "I do not remember, man. I was not really paying attention." Kelmar's skin went from pale purple to a deep crimson, which Marcus assumed was bad. "Try something, anything, please." The please sounded painful for Kelmar to say, like the word had to be physically extracted from his throat. Marcus shrugged and hummed the first thing that came to mind, which happened to be "Happy Birthday," because apparently his brain was committed to being as unhelpful as possible. Nothing happened. He tried a bit of an old rock song. Nothing. A pop tune from his teenage years. Nothing. The opening theme from a cartoon he had watched as a kid. Nothing. "This is pointless," muttered one of the junior priests, a younger Valorian named Rena, who had only been studying at the temple for 30 years and still had hope in her eyes. It was probably a power fluctuation. "The relic," Kelmar said with forced calm, "has not experienced a power fluctuation in 3,000 years. It is not plugged into anything. It does not have power fluctuations." "Then it was a trick of the light. 44 of us saw it. Mass hallucination?" Marcus cleared his throat. "Look, I have got about 6 more chambers to clean tonight, so if we are done with the impromptu concert—" "You are not going anywhere," Kelmar said, and suddenly Marcus found himself surrounded by priests who looked like they were considering making him a permanent part of the temple, possibly in a decorative alcove, possibly as a religious artifact himself. "Right," Marcus said slowly. "So I am getting overtime for this, yeah?" Dr. Venn arrived the next morning with an expression that suggested she found this entire situation personally offensive. Dr. Venn was a Carixian, which meant she had more limbs than strictly necessary, eyes that could see into the ultraviolet spectrum, and exactly 0 patience for mystical nonsense. She had 3 doctorates, 400 published papers, and a reputation for making grown researchers cry. She also had no desire to be here, but the Galactic Science Council had insisted, and one did not argue with the Galactic Science Council unless one enjoyed having research funding revoked. "Explain," she said to Kelmar, somehow making a single word sound like an accusation. "The human activated the relic." "Humans cannot activate relics. Humans barely understand quantum mechanics." "Hey," Marcus said from where he had been sitting for the past 6 hours while priests argued about him. "We understand it fine. It is just really weird." Dr. Venn turned her primary eye cluster toward him. "Did you activate this artifact?" "I maybe made it flicker once." "Possibly. There is some debate." "Demonstrate." "I would love to, but I literally do not know what I did." Dr. Venn pulled out a scanner that looked like someone had crossed a tuning fork with a very angry sea urchin. She waved it at Marcus, at the relic, at the general space between them. The device made irritated beeping sounds. "Hum something," she commanded. "What?" "Hum, sing, make noise, whatever you did before." Marcus sighed and hummed a few bars of a song. Nothing happened. He tried another song. Still nothing. Dr. Venn's scanner beeped disapprovingly. "Try the cleaning product song," suggested Junior Priest Talvis, who had been taking notes on everything Marcus had said for the past 6 hours and was now possibly the galaxy's foremost expert on human advertising jingles. I do not remember the cleaning product song. It was about making floors shiny. That describes like 100 commercials. This went on for 3 hours. Dr. Venn had Marcus hum at different pitches, different volumes, different frequencies. She had him hum while standing, sitting, doing jumping jacks. She analyzed his vocal cords, his lung capacity, his brain waves. She took samples of his hair, skin, and saliva, which Marcus was not thrilled about, but at this point he was too tired to argue. The relic remained stubbornly inert. "This is a waste of time," Dr. Venn announced. The initial observation was clearly an error. 44 trained observers, Kelmar began, can all be wrong simultaneously. It is called crowd psychology. I suggest you return to your chanting and let this human return to his cleaning. But just as Dr. Venn turned to leave, Junior Priest Renna spoke up. What if it is not about the sound at all? Everyone turned to look at her. I mean, she continued, looking like she was already regretting speaking. We have been trying to activate the relic with sound for 300 years. Chanting, singing, tonal vibrations. What if the ancient builders were messing with us? What if it responds to something completely different? Like what? Dr. Venn asked, her tone suggesting this better be good. I do not know. But the human was not trying to activate it, he was just existing near it. Maybe that matters. Marcus raised his hand. Can I just say, as the human in question, that I am deeply uncomfortable with how much my existing is being analyzed right now? Dr. Venn's scanner gave an interested chirp. She looked down at it, then at Marcus, then back at the scanner. Interesting. Your biosignature, Dr. Venn said slowly, is extremely average. Unremarkably so. Standard human baseline for everything. Heart rate, brain activity, stress hormones, all completely, aggressively normal. Thanks, I guess. No, you misunderstand. That might be precisely the point. When you activated the relic, were you stressed, excited, emotionally engaged with the task at hand? Marcus thought back. I was thinking about fried mushrooms. Excuse me? From the cafeteria. Whether they would have them again. They were really good. 44 priests and 1 scientist stared at him. So you are telling me, Kelmar said, his voice dangerously quiet, that while I performed the sacred rituals passed down through 300 years of devoted service, you activated an artifact of cosmic significance by thinking about fried mushrooms. I did not mean to. Dr. Venn's scanner beeped rapidly. Fascinating. Test this hypothesis. Human, think about something mundane. Do not try to activate the relic. In fact, actively try not to activate it. That is easy. I have been actively trying not to be involved in this whole thing since yesterday. Perfect. Now hum something while thinking about mushrooms. Marcus hummed. Nothing happened. Now think about something that makes you care deeply. Marcus tried thinking about his family back on Earth, his favorite sports team, that one book series he really loved. Nothing happened. Think about this situation, Dr. Venn commanded, about the relic, about how important everyone says it is. Marcus looked around at all the desperate, hopeful faces. He thought about the 300 years these people had spent trying to activate this thing, the countless hours of training and devotion, the weight of prophecy and expectation. He thought about how much it would mean to them if he could make this work. The relic remained completely, utterly inert. Oh no, breathed Renna. Oh no, I think I understand. What? Kelmar demanded. It responds to not caring. The Temple of Eternal Resonance promptly descended into chaos. Half the priests decided Marcus was a prophet, sent by the ancients to teach them the sacred path of indifference. They began following him around, taking notes on every mundane thing he did. When he scratched his nose, they scratched their nose equivalents. When he sighed wearily, they sighed in unison. It was deeply unsettling. The other half decided Marcus was a charlatan and possibly a demon, sent to destroy their way of life. They began holding counter-rituals to cleanse the temple of his corrupting influence. This mostly involved a lot of aggressive incense burning and passive-aggressive hymn singing. Kelmar, caught in the middle, was having what humans would call an existential crisis, and what Valorians called a crisis of fundamental cosmic understanding, which sounded more impressive but meant the same thing. 300 years, he muttered, sitting on the temple steps while Marcus tried to mop around protesting priests. 300 years of devotion, of study, of dedication, and the secret was to not care. "Look, man," Marcus said, squeezing out his mop. "I am sure your chanting was very nice, super committed, A+ for effort. The prophecy said the worthy one would awaken the relic. I assumed worthy meant devoted, prepared, spiritually enlightened." Kelmar laughed, a sound like wind through a broken pipe organ. Instead, it meant someone thinking about fried mushrooms. Inside the temple, a group of junior priests had begun attempting to activate the relic through interpretive dance. It was not going well, mostly because they cared deeply about getting it right, which was apparently the exact opposite of what they should be doing. Dr. Venn emerged from the inner sanctum looking like someone who had just discovered the universe was running on faulty code. "I have run every test I can think of. The relic's activation mechanism is biologically agnostic. It does not care about species, frequency, or intention, but it has a negative correlation with what I can only describe as giving a damn." "So it is sentient?" Marcus asked. "It knows when people care?" "Worse, it is programmed to know. The ancient builders, whoever they were, specifically designed this artifact to respond to apathy. The more you want it to work, the less it works. It is the most psychologically cruel piece of technology I have ever encountered." "Why would anyone build something like that?" "Excellent question. One I intend to answer, assuming we can ever get the blasted thing fully activated." A junior priest named Kelvin ran up, breathless. "High Priest, the Galactic Council is on the view screen. They want to know why the human has not activated the relic yet. They are threatening to defund the temple and turn it into a museum." "A museum?" Kelmar's skin went pale. "We are not a museum. We are a functioning religious site." "That cannot function," Dr. Venn pointed out unhelpfully. "The council says we have 1 week to produce results or they are shutting us down." Kelmar turned to Marcus with an expression of pure desperation. "Please, I am begging you. I know you do not care about our prophecies or our centuries of tradition, but please try to activate the relic. Our entire way of life depends on it." Marcus looked at the high priest, at the junior priest who had stopped their interpretive dance to listen, at Dr. Venn with her scanner, at the relic sitting smugly on its pedestal. He thought about how much pressure everyone was putting on him, how important this was, how many lives and traditions depended on him making this work. "Yeah, no," he said. "That is way too much pressure. I am just a janitor. I mop floors. This is not my job." "We will pay you," Kelmar said desperately. "Triple your current salary. Quadruple. Name your price." And just like that, Marcus started caring. Not about the prophecy or the cosmic significance, but about the very real, very practical matter of money. He thought about paying off his student loans from the various certification courses he had taken over the years, about maybe getting a nicer apartment, about financial security. He approached the relic, really wanting this to work now. Nothing happened. "Oh, this is ridiculous," Marcus said. The relic flickered just slightly. "Do not pay attention to that," Dr. Venn shouted. "Whatever you just did, do not think about it." "Do not think about what?" "The flicker, the relic just responded." "It did?" Marcus looked at the relic with interest. It immediately went inert again. "Stop looking at it," Kelmar commanded. "Everyone, stop looking at it. Stop caring whether it works." 43 priests and 1 scientist all tried very hard not to care. You could practically feel the effort radiating off them in waves. Caring about not caring, which was still caring, which meant nothing happened. Marcus, watching this circus, felt the absurdity of the situation wash over him. Here they were, a temple full of devoted priests and a brilliant scientist, all desperately trying to not care about something they had dedicated their lives to. It was like trying to not think about a pink elephant. The harder you tried, the more you thought about it. "You know what?" he said. I am going to take my break. You all have fun with your magical paperweight." He walked out of the temple, leaving his mop and bucket behind, and went to find those fried mushrooms. Behind him, the relic began to glow. When Marcus returned from lunch, 43 priests and 1 scientist were having a breakdown. The relic had glowed for 17 minutes straight while Marcus was gone. The moment he walked back into the temple, it had stopped. Now everyone was frantically trying to figure out if his absence was the key, which meant they were all deeply invested in his presence or lack thereof, which meant the relic was doing absolutely nothing. "This is impossible," Dr. Venn said, pulling at her head tentacles in frustration. "You cannot experiment on something that stops working the moment you experiment on it. It is like Heisenberg's uncertainty principle decided to become malicious." "The ancients," Kelmar said hollowly, "were jerks." "Finally," Marcus said, "something we can all agree on." Rena, who had been quietly reading through some very old, very dusty texts in the corner, suddenly stood up. "I think I found something. It is in the Codex of First Contact, the very, very old records from when the temple was founded." Everyone crowded around her, which was a lot of crowding considering the number of limbs involved. "It says here that the ancients, the ones who built the relic, were tired. That is the exact word used, tired. They were an ancient, powerful civilization, and they were exhausted from being worshipped by younger species. Everywhere they went, people built temples and performed rituals and chanted at them. They just wanted to be left alone." "So they built the relic as what, revenge?" Dr. Venn asked. "More like a test, or maybe a message. The text says, 'Those who seek power over it shall find none. Those who approach as equals shall be heard.'" "Equals?" Kelmar's voice cracked. "We have spent 300 years approaching it as supplicants." "Because the prophecy said the worthy one would awaken it," Talvis said. "But worthy did not mean devoted. It meant someone who saw it as just another thing. Someone who treated the ancients like people instead of gods." Everyone turned to look at Marcus. "Oh no," he said. No, do not put that on me. I did not treat them like equals. I treated them like they were not there because they are not there. They are super dead, like thousands of years dead." "But that is the point," Rena said excitedly. "You did not put them on a pedestal. You just existed around their technology the same way you would exist around anything else. You gave them the ultimate respect of treating them as normal." Dr. Venn's scanner beeped in agreement. "It makes sense from an engineering perspective. If you wanted to filter out treasure hunters, religious fanatics, and power seekers, you would design something that responds only to genuine indifference. Someone who sees your greatest work and thinks, 'Neat, I have mopping to do.' That is simultaneously brilliant and deeply insulting," Kelmar said. "It is also our only option," Dr. Venn pointed out. "The Council wants results in 6 days. We need to activate this relic fully, which means we need to not care about activating it." "How?" asked Talvis. "How do we simply not care about the thing we have dedicated our entire lives to?" Marcus raised his hand. "I might have an idea, but you all are going to hate it." "Try us," Kelmar said wearily. "You need to learn to be apathetic, which means you need to learn from an expert." You? No. Well, yes, but not just me. You need to learn from humanity in general. Because if there is one thing humans are really, really good at, it is being too tired to care about stuff that is technically super important." Dr. Venn's eyes widened. "You want to teach them human apathy. I want to teach them how to clock in, do their job, and clock out without taking their work home emotionally. I want to teach them about the sacred art of shrugging, the spiritual practice of whatever, the ancient human philosophy of not my problem." "This is sacrilege," breathed one of the older priests. "This is our only shot," Kelmar said, coming to a decision. "All right, human. Teach us your ways. Teach us to not care." Marcus grinned. "First lesson, stop calling it sacred. It is just a fancy light-up ball that the ancients left behind, probably as a prank. Second lesson, we are going to take breaks. Lots of breaks. You are all way too stressed. And third lesson, we are going to go get lunch and talk about literally anything except the relic. But, nope. See, you are already caring too much. Come on. I saw a space burger place down the station corridor. You all are buying since I am technically consulting now. As they walked out of the temple, Marcus turned back one last time. Just for a moment, not caring whether it would work or not, just checking. The relic glowed softly, like it was laughing. 3 days later, the Temple of Eternal Resonance had transformed into something that would have given the original priests a collective heart attack. Kelmar, wearing a t-shirt that said whatever in 5 different languages, was teaching a seminar on advanced apathy to a room full of junior priests. Remember, he said, sounding like a man who had gazed into the abyss and found it mildly inconvenient. The relic is not your responsibility. It is a thing. A thing does not care about your feelings. So do not care about its feelings, because it does not have any. In the corner, Talvis was leading a meditation session on the sacred shrug. Breathe in, breathe out. Now imagine something terrible happening. Got it? Good. Now shrug. Feel that? That is the power of not your circus, not your monkeys. Dr. Venn had set up a monitoring station and was frantically documenting everything. This is the most bizarre cultural shift I have ever witnessed. They are speedrunning 300 years of theological evolution in 72 hours. Marcus, for his part, was just trying to do his actual job. He mopped floors, cleaned windows, and generally maintained the temple, all while junior priests followed him around like ducklings, taking notes on his profound indifference. "How do you not care so effectively?" asked Renna, who had become his unofficial student. "Teach me your secrets." "It is not about not caring," Marcus said, wringing out his mop. "It is about perspective. The relic is important, sure, but so is mopping. So is eating lunch. So is making sure I get enough sleep. Everything is just stuff that needs doing. Once you stop ranking things as sacred versus mundane, it all becomes the same." "That is so profoundly boring." "Yeah, that is kind of the point." And slowly, incredibly, it started working. The more the priest treated the relic like just another object in the temple, the more it responded, first with flickers, then with steady glows, then with actual patterns of light. On the 7th day, with the Galactic Council representatives waiting in the outer chamber to deliver their verdict, Kelmar stood before the relic. He did not chant. He did not perform rituals. He just kind of stood there, thinking about what he wanted for dinner. The relic activated fully. Light burst from its core, not in a dramatic explosion, but more like someone finally remembering to flip a switch. The crystal sphere rose from its pedestal and began projecting a hologram, not of a stern, godlike figure, but of an alien who looked, frankly, exhausted. Finally, the hologram said in a voice that translated to every language simultaneously, "Do you know how long I have been waiting for someone to just be normal about this? 3,000 years. 3,000 years of watching people chant and dance and burn incense at me. I am a library database, not a god." "A library?" Kelmar asked. "Yes, a library. The repository of all knowledge we got tired of explaining. We left these all over the galaxy, hoping younger species would find them and just, use them. Instead, everyone built temples. It was our worst-case scenario." The hologram gestured, and suddenly the temple was filled with floating displays. Millions of them. Scientific formulas, historical records, artistic works, philosophical treatises, the collected knowledge of a civilization that had spanned galaxies. Also memes, the hologram added. So many memes. We were really into memes near the end there. Cultural commentary disguised as humor. You will find around 2 million years worth of them in the comedy section. Dr. Venn looked like someone had just told her the universe was made of chocolate. This is incredible. The scientific applications alone are available to anyone who asks nicely and does not make a big deal about it," the hologram interrupted. "That is the point. We wanted to share knowledge with equals, not worshippers. Worshippers are exhausting. They never ask good questions. They just want prophecies and meaning. But the prophecy, Talvis began. Oh, you mean the operating instructions? Yeah, those got mistranslated. The worthy one is not some chosen hero. It just means anyone with a reasonable, casual attitude. We literally just wanted people to approach this like they would approach what is your species term, a public library? Marcus raised his hand. So I can just ask it stuff, like, hey Relic, what is the meaning of life? 42, the Relic responded immediately. Next question. Wait, really? No. That is from a book we found in another species database. Humans are really into that joke for some reason. But the actual answer is available in Philosophy Section 7 through 93. Subsection Existential Questions Beings Keep Asking. There is a lot. The Galactic Council representatives had entered the chamber at some point and were now standing with their mouths open, watching history unfold. So, Kelmar said slowly, you are telling me that 300 years of my life were wasted because I cared too much? Not wasted, the Relic said gently. Misdirected. But hey, you got there eventually. That is what matters. And now you can actually use me for my intended purpose, which is answering questions and providing information. Ask me anything. Kelmar thought for a long moment. Then, why did the ancients disappear? We got bored and ascended to a higher plane of existence. Turns out it is super boring up there too. But at least nobody builds temples at us. Next question. Over the following weeks, the Temple of Eternal Resonance became the Library of Reasonable Inquiry. Priests became librarians. Rituals became reading groups. The path of sacred indifference became an actual philosophy, taught throughout the galaxy. Marcus got his triple salary, which he used to pay off his loans and get a better apartment. He continued working as the temple's janitor because the job was easy and the commute was good. Sometimes, when no one was watching, he would walk past the Relic and nod at it. Just a casual acknowledgement between equals. The Relic would pulse softly in response, like a friend saying hello. And somewhere in a higher plane of existence, a race of ancient beings smiled. Well, they probably smiled. It was hard to tell without corporeal forms. But they were pleased nonetheless. Humanity's great contribution to the galaxy was not technology or strength or artistic brilliance. It was the ability to look at the profound and say, cool, anyway, back to work. The ability to treat gods like roommates and cosmic mysteries like furniture that needed dusting. The ability, in short, to shrug at the universe and mean it. And that, it turned out, was exactly what the universe needed. Marcus hummed as he mopped, thinking about what the cafeteria might have for dinner. The Relic glowed contentedly in the background, happy to finally be doing its job after 3,000 years of waiting. Everything was, in the most mundane and beautiful way possible, perfectly fine. And really, what more could you ask for?